Good afternoon. I'm really excited to be here with you today. One of my own frustrations is when speakers get up and they make the story of what they did look really easy and obvious. I think we all know in this room that making decisions, business decisions, is often really complex and it's subtle, more subtle than it seems to outsiders. In medicine, you have this thing called grand rounds. I don't know if you know about those. It's where doctors can critique the treatment of a patient after the fact. Nothing like that really exists in business, except maybe in the court of public opinion and in case studies made by business schools. Well, today I'm going to talk to you about something that I believe is relevant for every single person in this room, and that is transformation. Every single one of our businesses and brands, they are really in the midst of transformation all the time. Even if what you're doing is static, change is happening all around you. And in the famous words of Ferris Bueller, life moves pretty fast, and if you don't stop and look around once in a while, you might miss it. I think it's all about whether or not you are actually making a change or if you're just letting change happen to you. Are you embracing it or are you letting it happen to you? I think a lot of companies seem to pick the latter. I know we did. So what I want to do is I want to tell you the story of a really iconic brand in transformation. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back the kimono and tell you not just about our successes, but I want to talk to you about our failures and our challenges as well. But first, let me take a selfie. That's a keeper. Let's go back in history. Whoops, that's one too many. Let's go back in history. Let's go to Sweden. It's 1979. That is ABBA that you see on this slide. Great Swedish band. There's a monopoly for alcohol in Sweden. It's government run and it's called Vin and Sprit. That's wine and spirits, or VNS for short. And all of the revenue that VNS makes goes towards funding social services. And they made a lot of revenue, because I don't know if you know, but Swedes like to get a drink every now and again. But in 1979, there was an extremely entrepreneurial bureaucrat who was working for VNS who thought, maybe we can grow these revenues even further if we go into the export business. One of the products he wanted to export was a premium vodka that was made in a tiny, tiny village in southern Sweden, less than 10,000 people. All of them were somehow involved in the production and the making of this vodka. All the ingredients were sourced from within a 50-mile radius. The town was called Aarhus, and the brand was called Absolut, which is actually short in Swedish for absolutely pure vodka, which it is. Now, if you're going to export vodka, where do you think you want to go? You want to go to America. That's the place. This is where the business is at. This is where the margins are. So you want to go to America. But coming to America has a couple of challenges involved. It really does. Let me try to explain those to you. We're in 1979. First of all, Americans thought that good vodka all came from the Eastern Bloc. They didn't think that vodka could come from anywhere else. And those vodkas, they were pretty ugly, not very premium packaging, big labels that they were hiding behind. And I have to tell you, the category was not very premium, not at all. The advertising kind of read like soft porn. Win a Russian bride. Clean up the office party. I have to read the quote because it's amazing. I never realized that Mr. Smithers had such nice green eyes. Or I never even thought of burning my bra until I discovered Smirnoff. All right, this is the competitive context, not very premium, as you can see. And then the guys at VNS met with challenge number one. Not a single distributor wanted to take Absolut on. So the team there realized that they really had to break the rules. And other than being a Swedish vodka, the first rule that was broken was the bottle design. Now, it's being a very... Oh, there's music to this one. All right, I'll let this play. Yeah, It's a great design. It's actually inspired by an ancient Swedish apothecary bottle, so it's completely clear in difference to the competitive set that you just saw. Testing showed that this was going to be a big failure, by the way. Because it was clear, you couldn't see it in the back bar. Nobody could see it, and bartenders hated it because, I don't know if you noticed, the neck is really short, so they didn't really like pouring from it. But it was authentic to Swedish values, and it let the quality of the vodka inside shine through. Second rule that was broken was with a distributor. Nobody wanted to take on Absolut except one tiny little outfit called Carillion Distributors. They only had one sales rep. It was this guy, a very charismatic French guy. It's called Michel Roux. Michel Roux is a legend. He's the guy who actually built the Absolut brand. So let's summarize the situation. The Swedish government is trying to export Swedish vodka into the United States in a bottle that you can't really see in the back bar, that bartenders hated, using a one-horse distributor led by a Frenchman, and then do that at a premium price. Yeah, it doesn't sound very promising, does it? And the research that was done confirmed that it was going to be a complete disaster. It was actually the distributor who paid for the research. So they told Michel, go out and sell enough cases so we get our $80,000 back. That was the brief that he got. And as you all know, he was able to sell quite a lot more than those $80,000. Being an intelligent guy, he realized that a brand like this needed a proper introduction, so he went on a search for an ad agency. And the ad agency that came winning out of that created one of the most iconic campaigns of all time. The ad agency was TBWA, and we would continue to work with them for over 35 years. Michel, who was a party guy, he went to Studio 54. He met guys like Andy Warhol, and Andy wanted to get involved with Absolut. And then another rule was broken. Instead of talking about what was inside the bottle itself became a canvas for art. And the rest, as you know, is history. I bet you that if any of you guys went to the college in 80s and the 90s, I bet you that a few of you actually had a few of those posters on your dorm room walls. Absolut became part of culture. It created and owned the premium vodka market in the United States, and it became the largest imported spirit into the US. An amazing success story. But, like any habit, it gets old, and the world changes. And for us, it changed in a pretty substantial way. In the early 2000s, we had more than 1,000 of those executions in our archives, and it was becoming wallpaper. People didn't really care anymore. And the category moved from what we thought was amazing and creative into bling. That's what happened. A guy called Sidney Frank, a very talented entrepreneur, decided to import a vodka from France, claimed that it was filtered through champagne, lime rock or something like that. Never figured out quite what that does. And then he put it in a tall frosted bottle, added $20 to our price point, and all of a sudden, there was a new category, super premium. Diddy became the ambassador for a vodka made from grapes, and anyone looking in from the outside thought this is such a great category to be in, and so the number of variants exploded. Marshmallow fluff vodka, anyone? Bacon-infused vodka, perhaps? And against that context, our world changes again. In 2006, a conservative government was elected into Swedish parliament. First time there was a conservative government in I don't know how long, and they decide that it's not the job of a government to run an iconic global vodka business. They may have had a point, and in the subsequent auction, Pernod Ricard won the bidding and picked up Absolut for $9 billion, which basically helped erode Sweden's national debt. And to that, we should be very thankful to Mr. Michel Roux and Mr. Lindmark. Boy, talk about cultural change. Back in the VNS days, we would go to the government once per year, and we'd basically tell them how much money they were going to make. And whatever number we gave them, they all looked incredibly happy. What they didn't realize is that maybe they could have made 2 or even 3 times as much. But we just went back to the office, continued to perfect our strategies, work on really tight creative collaborations, and we continued doing our work. Now, if you've just bought something for $9 billion, you're going to expect some return. It's not like we're doing badly. We're growing in the low single digits in the US. We're growing in the double digits outside of the US. But that growth was masking a fact, which is that the world was changing. A new consumer was coming into the category, and that consumer had not grown up with Absolut vodka. They didn't know that we'd work with Andy Warhol or Keith Haring or Tom Ford or Basquiat. They didn't know. They didn't know that we were partying with the same guys at Studio 54. And I suspect they didn't much care. I think the bottom line is what happened here is rather than continuing to break the rules, we were 10 minutes late to the party. That's the thing about change. It can and it will happen to you. And if you're running a global iconic brand like Absolut and you're growing, it's not so obvious that you actually have to change. But what I want to do for the rest of my time here with you today is maybe share with you 4 lessons that we have picked up over these years that might help you actually embrace transformation rather than just having it happen to you. And the first of those pieces of advice is this. Don't look for canaries in the coal mine or burning bushes. Look for trends. We all know the example of General Motors, right? They lost 20 share points over the period of a couple of decades. Why didn't they react? Well, the point is their position was still so dominant and the change was so gradual that they didn't really recognize the threat that was coming out of the Japanese and Korean car industry. And, you know, we all know how that went. Now, you don't have to be a Swedish or a Canadian hockey fan to realize that that hockey stick is pointed the wrong way. By the way, congratulations on your win last night. I wish I could share your enthusiasm. I have a couple of buddies who are actually playing on that New York team. I think we'll work. No tomatoes? Listen, I wasn't around back then in the early 2000s, and hindsight is always 20/20, but I think the guys who were in charge of Absolut back then were clearly looking at the wrong barometer of success. It was not about volume and market share. The fact was that a new consumer had entered into the category and they had different values than their parents. They had different consumption behaviors, different beliefs, and we needed to reintroduce ourselves to them, but we failed to do that. The writing was on the wall. I remember back in 2003, I had a girlfriend who was reading a book by Candace Bushnell, you know, the lady who wrote Sex and the City. And it was about this girl from the Midwest or somewhere like Ohio, and she moved to New York. And she started to hang out with the city girls. And she went out with them, and then she orders an Absolut martini, and the girls looked like her like she's an idiot. Like, oof, how can you order an Absolut? And I remember getting that passage read to me by my girlfriend, and I was like, that was so hurtful. I'm a Swedish guy. How can anything possibly be cooler than drinking Absolut? That was, you know, it took us 10 years to change after that. Why does it take 10 years to change after that when you get those kind of indicators? Because business remained great in Ohio. Business was great, but the writing was on the wall. Lesson number 2, don't pursue the super cool. You should pursue what's insightful and what connects your brand to how people use it. It's really easy, you know, when you want to reestablish yourself with a younger consumer, a new generation, to try to pursue what's cool. But what's cool is not necessarily the same thing as what's insightful. Now, some of the people in my team are in the audience today, and they might cringe at me for bringing up this example. In fact, they might even disagree. But I don't care, because I don't think that these kinds of talks are about patting yourself on the back for all your brilliant moves. I think we need to have some honesty as well. Okay, so here's what we tried to do. We wanted to get a new generation of millennials to fall in love with us the same way that people had in the 80s and the 90s. So instead of having artists draw our bottle, we decided to collaborate on music. And not just any music, but EDM. That's electronic dance music for those of you who don't go to Ibiza every year. And what we wanted to collaborate on was Swedish House Mafia, which is a very good EDM band. They're Swedish, too. So what we asked them to do is let's take one of our cocktails, the Absolut Greyhound. That's vodka and grapefruit juice to you and me. The Absolut Greyhound. And let's make a fantastic world to inspire around this cocktail. And then we asked Swedish House Mafia to come in and write the score. Just give us the music, okay? Let's have a look at the result.
vodka.
Thank you. It's pretty cool, huh? I'm pretty proud of that one, I have to say. Here's the thing. That's probably the most watched branded music video collaboration ever. It's definitely the most watched Spirit commercial ever made. It's a pretty good achievement. But I'll tell you what. I'll stand here in front of you today and tell you I think it was probably a waste of time. Why? It's very cool, but it's not that insightful. There's not a very clear link between our brand and that music video. You know, reading like people's comments on YouTube and Vivo, some of them are going like, oh, I love the video, but it's so obnoxious with this product placement from Absolute. It's not a music video, it's my commercial. I just let them do the score. They didn't get it. Anyway, now we're trying to be more insightful. We're trying to connect our product to how people are experiencing it. We're using that doing global experiences. You know, it's not about flash in the pan initiatives. The bottom line is we're not letting Hail Mary moves dictate our strategy. Lesson number 3. Don't be static, experiment and experiment endlessly. That would be lesson number 3. You know, in the 80s and 90s, in business schools, we got taught a lot about positioning in the marketing classes. It was all about positioning. You take a position and then you protect that position. I just don't think that that's a very good strategy anymore. You know, I don't think you're going to be successful protecting a position. We think that you're successful doing new things all the time. That's not to say that, you know, my own brand management school that I went through at P&G is a waste of time. On the contrary, it's not. But we think brands have to move at the speed of the internet, iterate constantly. We consider ourselves as perpetually in beta, and we consider the world as our test bed. We even put the idea of transformation at the heart of our new brand campaign. It's called Transform Today. And it's a call to action to millennials who live by a very different set of values than their parents to go out and use creativity to shape their future. And Transform Today as a platform can take a number of different expressions. You know, we can work with a graphic novel artist to create a graphic novel on Facebook with people actually participating. We create a suite of global nightlife experience where we put real art into the party. We invite them to be part of hackathons together with us where we're hacking the future bar experience using technology. The point is marketing is not about repeatability in our minds anymore. It's about creating a point of view and then letting that point of view take on a number of different expressions. Fourth and final lesson that I'd like to share is don't be afraid of cannibalization anymore. Be ready to sacrifice yourself to thrive, okay? So, when you're at a position of strength, it's really disintuitive to do something new. Why would you? But the fact is that transformation is around every corner. So I tell my team that we have to throw ourselves up into the wind. We have to embrace what's known as the innovator's dilemma. It's about launching new products, new brands, like Our Vodka. With Our Vodka, we're basically building micro distilleries into vibrant cities around the world. And once we've built the distilleries, we hand the keys over to local entrepreneurs and we let them run the business for us. So we completely relinquish control. The only thing that remains constant is the recipe, how the bottle looks, and the brand values. We've already launched that in Berlin. In 3 weeks' time, we're launching in Detroit. Then I'm going to go into New York, Seattle, Miami, Johannesburg, Melbourne, and we're going to try to conquer the world with this one. Let's have a look.
Our Vodka believes in local power.
We believe that things don't have to be done in a certain way just because they've been done like that for a long time.
Our vodka is a micro-distilled vodka made by local people.
It's locally produced, hand-bottled, and engaged in our community.
We are all partners running the distilleries in each our own city.
First we opened in Berlin.
And now we are in a number of cities all around the world.
All our vodka is made with the same recipe.
But every distillery will use locally sourced ingredients.
The small bottle with a crown cap is about keeping things simple.
It just stands out, and it reminds us that sometimes simple is beautiful.
But more importantly, it's more than vodka. It's about community. It's about people, and it's about going back to work and having purpose.
The city adds everything to our vodka. Without the cities, our vodka is nothing.
It's truly a family.
Yep. Thank you. We're incredibly excited about this one. I personally believe it's going to be a blockbuster success, but I have to say I was kind of skeptical at first. I was wondering how a company as big as ours would be able to be nimble and entrepreneurial like we have to be to do a business like this, but the response has been amazing. Another one that we're launching is this one, the first luxury Absolute. It's called Absolute Elix, and I put it to you that objectively speaking, it's the best vodka in the world. We make it in a single estate, in the south of Sweden. We're using a 1921 copper still that only one guy really knows how to operate, and the result is amazing. It was awarded best vodka in the world in San Francisco. This is a personal darling as well, and one of the most important launches that we have. We're also launching adjacency business on Absolute in the nightlife and entertainment spaces. It's more than likely that several of these new ventures are going to fail or underperform, but you know what? I think that's okay, because at least we're failing upwards, because we're trying new things. And we're taking these things extremely seriously. They're not pet projects and experiments. We think they're the future of our business. And any and all of these initiatives could contribute to more growth to our business than our darling hero, Absolute Vodka, ever will again. And you know what? I think that's more than okay. So, that's the story of I think I have a beautiful image of Elix for you there as well. Nice. That's the story of an iconic brand in transformation. I think if there's one moral to the story, it's this. You can be running the most iconic brand in the world, and you can be executing on all cylinders, but things around you will change. And I think several of the speeches today have touched on that. It's not just our business. Amazon with books, or Airbnb with hotels, Spotify with music, Uber with taxis. But in the near future as well, Absolute is going to reinvent vodka and nightlife once more.
It's not about thinking that you can be anyone. It's about finding who you should be. Curiosity is about filling the gaps that you have inside of you.
It makes you really wonder, what happens if I rip this thing apart? And what happens if I change this variable or adjust this image?
Being daring is something in life that is essential. It's about creating a lot from yourself.
If you provoke people, you can inspire them.
You have to create your own movement.
You have to believe in yourself. Reinvent yourself. You are free from your past to recreate your future, but you have to create that challenge for yourself. Whatever choice you make to move, to create.
Always look for transformation.
Thank you. So, let me just leave you with this. I think every single one of you here should be in the iteration business. That's what I think. Because the only source of true long-term competitive advantage is in your ability to constantly manage change. You can either choose to change or you can let it happen to you. But it will change. That's the only constant. I invite you for an Absolute Greyhound cocktail at 6:30 later tonight. Thank you very much.
Pour la période de questions, for the Q&A period, veuillez accueillir, please welcome Will Travis.
Before we open the mic for a second, we have a very big day tomorrow. And Jonas is going to get married. So a C2, big cheer for that event.
Thank you.
Well done, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome. My wife-to-be would shoot me if I was speaking at a conference the night before our wedding. But anyway, so we're going to get the mics up. There's a couple of guys going to be pounding forwards. Where's Absolut going to go in the future? I mean, there's a new vodka, I think, nearly every 2 weeks coming onto the marketplace, and you have a legendary brand here. What do you see in the next few years?
Well, first of all, you know, I think that there is enormous opportunity in new markets. There is. If you imagine like a campaign like Transform Today, which talks about shaping the future, a better future, that's going to sit incredibly well in places like China, India, Brazil. So I think there's huge geographic opportunity. But also here in the US or Canada, here in Canada or in the US, I think that the world is changing a bit. You know, we got hit a little bit with that bling thing which came. I think after 2009, there's a little bit of a return to maybe values that are more closer to us. So I think we have an incredibly bright future in front of us.
And you're managing change versus being managed by change, you said. How do you spot the change that's coming down the pipe? How do you know what's going to hit us?
I think, first of all, you don't really know. And I think that's part of the reason why we have to launch so many different ideas and initiatives at the same time and accept that the majority is going to fail. But if we're being insightful and we get 1 or 2 of them right, that's the best way to predict success in the future, I think. So I think it's a matter of trying lots of different new things. And by the way, making sure that we have young, talented people in the company, you know, who are much more in touch with what's going on than people like myself.
And working with awesome agencies like Sid Lee.
Awesome agent.
Awesome
by the way,
agencies
if
like
you
Sid
like
Lee.
what you saw visually, that's Sid Lee. Amazing job by those guys.
Awesome. All right, well, I'll open it up. Yeah, brilliant. Sid Lee, you rock. Brilliant. Yeah, great. Sorry, ladies first.
Of course, thank you. I used to actually work on the Smirnoff brand, so I'm very interested in what you said about Absolut. Mostly what fascinated me is this idea of the R vodka and what you're rolling out. So your own now by Pernod Ricard, does the Our Vodka, do you provide to them the essential part of the distribution system as well, or did they take that on their own? Because the infrastructure of distribution is one of the hardest things for obviously a brand that's local like that to move around.
That's a very insightful question.
Thank you.
What we're actually doing is part of the business model and part of the charm of Our Vodka is that we're putting it outside of the Pernod Ricard distribution system. Because, you know, it's a huge machine. And for them to manage a small priority where success might look like 500 cases in the first couple of months, they just can't take it on. They need to deal with a monster that's Absolut or Jameson or Chivas Regal or Perrier Jouet. So what we've said is we put it outside of the normal distribution system until it's got some scale and momentum. Then we bring it back in.
So does that mean our Detroit could be available in Vegas or eventually, or right now is it being kept to that community the way
eventually,
you started it?
You know, but what we're really trying to do is to create a sense of local community. Exactly. Should our Detroit be available in Illinois? Yeah, probably.
Right.
You know, our LA might travel to Vegas. So it's going to be more, I think, microcosms where the adjacent states could get a little bit of business. But it's really for Detroit. That's the number one market.
That's the number one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one in the deep end, and then we have one up front.
Yep. Hey, thanks for being here. Really appreciated the presentation. How do you take that global vision and translate it down at a very granular, relevant level for, say, you know, a driver salesman in Tennessee, or you know, you rolled out big names like Miami and New York, but what about Tallahassee or, you know, Peoria, Illinois? Like, how does that global vision translate in those places?
That's also a wise question, you know, and sometimes in the team, we talk about the sales guy in Oklahoma. We talk about the sales guy in Oklahoma as a way of understanding that whatever we do needs to be simple and clear enough for him to be able to go into a store and explain. And I'll be honest and say sometimes we haven't done that. Absolut is a pretty sophisticated brand, as you know, and then trying to get that into something which is really easy and understandable for the sales guy is really tough. But it's something that I'm working on a daily basis together with a team. We use something which is called playbooks, which is something we started. And for those of you who know what American football is, you know, the playbook is basically the recipe for how one team is going to beat another. And we've created playbooks for all of our brands. And we want to give those playbooks to each and every one of our partners, including the sales guy in Oklahoma. It talks about the history, it explains the business model, it showcases all the assets. So we think this idea of a playbook is something that we can use to get everybody on the same page, even if you're somewhere in the Midwest.
Thank you.
Okay. Bozeman, Montana.
So after 35 years, that's an incredible run with an agency. I'm curious what your new agency, Sid Lee, showed you that would allow you to make that shift, and how that culture has shifted within your organization, your company, since that shift.
First of all, to be clear, I think we're working with a roster of agencies, and Sid Lee is probably our #1 agency at the moment. They do such great work. I think the biggest shift that Sid Lee was able to bring to the party was to really embrace that we're no longer dealing with just brand ideas. We need to deal with business ideas. So I think what they helped bring to the party was actually a business model for Absolute that was centered around experience, with a bow tie model, moving from saying to doing, which we found very compelling and which we needed, whereas other agencies were more just giving us the latest new ad, which we feel is not a very effective way of advertising anymore. We think the broadcast model is dead, and we need to move to an engagement model, and I think Sid Lee as an agency came in and sort of showed us the way there.
All right, Jonas, the groom-to-be, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Great.